Welcome to section 4, the last section in this module, the project cost management. Now in this section we're going to be talking about control costs. Control costs. Now this is the process whereby we establish the systems and strategies for controlling the project costs. So let's move into it. As an overview, control costs is a critical process within project cost management, focusing on monitoring, reviewing, and managing project costs to ensure that they align with the project budget. Okay? Now this process involves tracking performance, identifying variances, and implementing corrective actions to control costs effectively. Now, what are the objectives of the control cost process? The primary objectives of control costs include cost performance monitoring. Now, this involves continuously monitoring and measuring cost performance against the baseline project budget. Remember, we talked about establishing a cost baseline, right, in the previous process. Variance analysis. Identify and analyze any variances between actual costs and the budgeted costs. Corrective action. Implement corrective actions to address cost variances and bring the project back in line with the budget. Right now, this is the process for controlling the project costs. Okay? You're carrying out your monitoring, okay, continuously monitoring the costs, all right, while the project is being executed, from activity to activity, from phase to phase, from milestone to milestone, as the deliverables are being churned out. Then while that is going on, you're carrying out your variance analysis, identifying and analyzing the variances and the size of those variances, the frequency of those variances, the magnitude of those variances between the actual costs and the costs that have been budgeted already. Okay, so when you have that in perspective, you can now begin to take corrective actions. All right, how do you get those? How do you cover up those variances? How do you close those gaps, those loopholes? How do you plug them in order to get your cost, your expenditure back to exactly what is obtained in the budget? All right, so when you get this going, you find out that you have your costs and your expenditures under wraps. All right, and in close tandem with what you have in the budget. So let's move on. Now, what are the inputs of this control cost process? The first is the project management plan. The overall project management plan, including the cost management plan and the project budget. So you're going to have those as inputs for this process. Project funding requirements. Now remember, this is an output from the determine budget process. Okay, so here now it's serving as an input, and it details the funding needed to support the project throughout its life cycle. Work performance data. Actual costs and progress information collected during project. Work performance data. Actual cost and progress information collected during project execution. Alright, so during the project execution, you must have had your work performance data, right? So the actual your work performance data is a compilation of the actual costs, what you are spending for each activity, all right, and the progress information as the project progresses. Organizational process assets. These include historical information, lessons learned, and financial control procedures. Okay. So let's take a look at the tools and techniques that we use for the control cost process. End value management, EVM. This is a technique that integrates scope, schedule, and resource measurement to assess project performance. So when you have end value management, it's quite technical, right? And most times it could involve doing one calculation or the other, right? So it's a technique that integrates the scope, the schedule, as well as the resource measurements to assess project performance. Then you also have forecasting. You do forecast, right? And this is to predict future project performance based on current trends and variances. All right. So as a project manager, you should be able to look into the future, and you can tell based on exposure, based on experience, how the project performance is going to go in the future based on your analysis of current trends and variances as the project progresses. Okay, so that will help you in anticipating changes. All right, and then it will also help you know how to go about making your change requests and implementing those changes in order to be able to adapt as the project progresses into the future. To complete performance index, this is a measure of the cost performance that is required to achieve specific project goals. Okay, so you have to have your cost performance under wraps if you want to be able to achieve specific project goals. Change control system, a systematic approach to managing changes to the project scope, schedule, and costs. So as far as the project is concerned, there's definitely going to be changes, all right, during the project life cycle. So that's why this forecasting is important, so you can anticipate those changes and make necessary arrangements, do your change requests and be able to manage those changes as it affects the project scope, the schedule, and especially the project costs. Okay, so moving on to the outputs. What are the outputs of this process? First and foremost, the work performance information. And this is information about project progress, including cost performance data. So this gives you how you're performing cost-wise as far as that project is concerned. Okay, the work performance information as it relates to the costs. Cost forecasts. These estimated future costs based on project performance. Change requests. Proposals for changes to the project budget, schedule, or other components. So as you make your forecast, like I said before, you can anticipate changes, all right, and that will help you to be able to apply for a change request, do your change requests, okay, and then carry out your analysis on time to know how those changes can impact on the project positively or negatively, okay, and to be able to align your project budget as well as your schedule and even any other components that may be affected by that change. So what are the key takeaways from this process? The first is proactive monitoring. Okay, control cost helps to give proactive monitoring to your project, so you are not reactive, all right? No matter what happens, all right, you are always on top of your game, you are always in control, all right? So it emphasizes proactive monitoring to identify potential cost issues early in the project life cycle, all right? Okay, so this helps to position you not to be reactive but to be proactive with cost issues throughout the life cycle of your project. integrated approach. This integrates cost, schedule, and scope considerations to provide a holistic view of project performance. Okay, so you have an integrated approach to your project performance. Continuous improvements. Lessons learned from cost control activities should be incorporated into future projects to enhance cost estimation and control processes. Okay, so from the lessons learned, you can be able to keep improving the project as it progresses. Timely decision making. The process facilitates timely decision making by providing real-time insights into project cost performance. Control cost is integral to maintaining financial control over the project. So you have your grip on the finances or the funds of the project with this process now. All right. It involves a systematic approach to monitoring, analyzing, and responding to cost variances, ensuring that the project stays on track with its budgeted costs. Okay, so this helps you stay on track with the budgeted cost of your project, so you do not run out of funds before your project is completed. All right, so I hope you got that. This brings us to the end of this section and also the end of the module for this week 7. Okay, so I'll see you in the next module. Cheers.